Hi, this is Michael Fiore, and I want to welcome you to Module 4 of the Text Your Wife into Bed training program. Module 4 is all about what I call multi-sensual storytelling. That might be a little bit of a strange name for it, but it's going to make sense in just a second. So step 3 in our blueprint of the exact sequence you should use in order to text your wife into bed is taking control through multi-sensual storytelling, which really means basically just pushing her hot buttons a lot and turning her on to an extraordinarily high degree. Just a quick recap, because I like to do that. Our first step was the curiosity pivot, and that was where we basically sent her a relatively innocuous curiosity-based text designed to get her to respond so that we could shift gears over into the sexual context, take her from her everyday life into this world of sexuality and sensuality. Step 2 was telling her you want her, establishing her sexual power. And that was all about basically using masculine sexual language, largely visual sexual language, in order to shift her out of mommy mode. We did that using asset texts, which are basically where we say whatever her best physical assets are. Your amazingly gorgeous eyes, how fucking amazing your ass is, your breasts, blah, 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 whatever it is about your particular wife that she's most proud of, and going from there. And step 3 is where we lead your wife through a sexual experience or while fully engaging her emotions, imagination, and senses. Basically, we're going to tell her stories. We're going to narrate a fantasy for her through the entire thing to get some really great results. And the key thing about this is this fantasy is going to be positioned as your fantasy, even though it's really kind of hers. You're going to take a fantasy and use feminine language the entire time in order to make this fantasy really stick in her mind, but you're basically telling her the kind of thing that you want to be doing. So as we go back and say again, men and women are different. Duh. Step 2 was all about establishing your lust for her. So we used male-focused visual language. But step 3 is about creating her lust for you. So instead of using male-focused language, we're going to use female-focused, emotional, and sensual language and take control by creating a narrative for her so she can simply relax and enjoy it. She doesn't need to do any thinking. She doesn't need to do any work in this case. You're going to do that for her. What do I mean by emotional and imaginative language? Let me give you a few examples. One is just simply the word feel. If you know anything about women or have heard women talk to each other or heard women talk to you, they use the word feel an awful lot. They say things like, do you know how that makes me feel? And they mean that both emotionally and tactilely. Simply by using the word feel in your text, you're going to be able to dig really deeply into her mind and her emotions. So an example would be, you feel my hot breath on your neck. You feel your ass as it rubs against me. Anything to that degree is going to be really powerful. My next favorite word is imagine. Imagine my hands slowly gliding down your sides. Imagine is a fantastically powerful word in human communication in general. But in this case, particularly, it's like a howitzer cannon. Simply by saying imagine, you're going to send her to immediately start imagining what you're saying. Can you imagine how good it's going to feel when you feel my hands slowly crawling up your back into your hair, pulling your head back so that my lips meet yours and we have a kiss, etc., etc., etc. An even more powerful thing, of course, is imagine what it's going to feel like, essentially combining the two of these power words. If you look in your PDF downloads, you're going to find a whole lot more power words as well that I just don't have room for in the video here. So our goal here is to build up anticipation. This is foreplay for her. As men, we don't tend to need foreplay too much. We're kind of emotionally and physically evolved to be ready to go at a moment's notice. We get turned on, we get a hard on, we want to pounce on her and kind of go from there. But women, of course, tend to need more foreplay. The great thing about doing this kind of system, though, is that you're getting the foreplay done while she's at work or while you're at work so that you can really just kind of get to the good stuff when you get home. We're also painting a picture of a sexual experience for her and we're basically establishing you as being in control of her sexuality and are creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Basically, at this point, we're going to narrate the type of sexual experience we want to have by showing her how incredibly enjoyable it is. And you're going to narrate her reactions as you're going as well and create this self-fulfilling prophecy where because you're telling her it's going to feel really great, it most likely is going to feel really great for her if you actually get her to do it, which I'll tell you how to do in the next module. And basically it's going to lead to the point that she wants to get hypersexual with you. So a few do's and don'ts for this section. Do get graphic, dirty, and specific. The more specific you are, the more powerful this is going to be. If you just say, I touch you and it feels good, not so much. But if you can say something like, my fingers walk along your spine and you feel this electric shiver go through your entire body, that she's going to respond to. And again, a lot of the printed material, I give you a lot of that stuff. And you want to get dirty. Don't be afraid to get dirty here. You want to use words like pussy. You want to use words like cock or penis. Or if you want to use euphemisms, that's fine as well. It really is up to you how dirty in the language you want to get as far as dirty words, like swears and things like that. But you want to get to the point that you're really getting sensually and sexually engaged in her mind, which means going to a place in the language that you're not typically going to be able to use or you're not used to using. You also want to take control. You're going to take her and make her feel like the sexiest woman in the world. We've talked before about the idea of being a dominant but not creepy man. That extends here as well. This is really your chance to shine as far as narrating her through a really powerful sexual experience and inserting yourself into that experience as well. You're going to create this idea of yourself as kind of a sex god for her, essentially. Somebody who is a source of incredible pleasure for her. And you do want to move from the future or past to present tense all the time. Basically, this means that if you're starting with by narrating or creating a fantasy that happened in the past or revivifying one, you're going to quickly move into present tense stuff. I'll explain that later. Same with the future. If you're saying I'm going to, you quickly switch over to present tense so that she's feeling it right now. By simply narrating in the present, if you do it the right way, your wife is going to actually feel a lot of the emotions and the feelings that she gets at the same time. Okay. And you do want to build up the heat over time. Don't be in a rush here. Good things happen. So don't talk to your woman like she's a man by using primarily visual language all the time. That's not the way women think, and that's not the way women get turned on. You got to go for feelings. You can go for sounds. You can go for emotions. You can go for all sorts of things. Visuals to some degree is part of the mix, but it's not the only way to go. For men, all you've really got to do is say, and then you see an incredibly hot girl and blah, blah, blah. Women are more complicated. Don't back off or pussy out. This stuff really does work, but you have to commit to it. You have to go all the way there. If you go halfway there and then kind of back off, it's going to feel weird to her. It's going to feel like you're a little bit ashamed of your sexuality, which again is the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. And don't be selfish. I think if you've figured out anything from this course so far, it's that the best way to get what you want is to give her what she wants. And that means that you have to give her pleasure. You have to narrate her or bring her to a place that she really feels sexy and wanted and hot, and she feels this incredible pleasure building up inside her, and good things happen. And if you give her that, I promise you that when she gets home and you manage to find a place to get alone with her, good things are going to happen. She's going to open up to you like a flower. She's going to look at you with unbridled lust and love, most likely as well. She's going to look at you and say thank you and really give you what you want, probably give you a better sexual experience than you've had in months, years, decades. Great things happen. All you got to do is wake her up again, which is kind of what we've been talking about this entire time. And don't rush. You got all day. You get all day to do this. In fact, you've actually got years, you've got months, you've got weeks. Sometimes it can take a little while, depending on the woman to get there. Oftentimes, though, it's more like an automatic thing. You send text for a day or so, and all of a sudden she's hopping on you. So good things happen. So you've really got 3 storytelling options here, 3 ways of setting the stage with your multi-sensual storytelling. The first is the future-oriented storyline, which is basically where you say, here's what I'm going to do to you. And this can be either factual about what you're actually going to do to her, or it can be something like a fantasy, a pure fantasy. It could be what I'm going to do to you is I'm going to blah, 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 tie you to the bed, do all these kind of things. Or it could be just something simple about how you're going to nibble your way down her neck, etc. The second option is the past, what I did. In this case, what you do is you take an actual experience from her past or your past, your combined past, and you just narrate it. I talk about this a bit in the section 2 where we talk about establishing her sexual power. But you're just kind of continuing that in this case. You're basically saying, here's what I did. So you're going to talk about that time you guys were at the Grand Canyon camping and you had incredible sex and you almost got caught and there was a snake and stuff like that. But you go into it in excruciating, wonderful, passionate detail with her and basically make her relive that experience again because it felt so good the first time. And the third is the present. What I would do if you were here, the fantasy. This one's really fun because you can basically say, if you were here right now, I would, if you were here right now, I would close the door in my office, tell my secretary to ignore everybody. I'd walk over to you, and as you sit down on the couch, you'd have a little smile on your face, and blah, blah, blah. You just give this incredible experience of what you would do right then. And it doesn't need to be something that would actually happen at all. It can be total fantasy. It's okay. No matter what, though, we always want to switch to the present tense as quickly as possible. And the reason we do this is because we want her experiencing the emotions and even the physical sensations in her mind, or the echoes of those physical sensations, as quickly as possible. So you might start off by saying, remember that time we were at the Grand Canyon and you felt me crawl up behind you and nibble down your neck, etc. But then you quickly move into very much present tense. And as we're there, your hips thrust back against me, etc. All very present tense. I'll get more into that later. And we want to use short visceral phrases to do that. I'll explain that in a bit when I get to the examples. So here's some examples of step 3 texts. Very simple one. Can you imagine what it's going to feel like when you feel my hands slide down your sides to your hips? Notice how I use the word feel twice in this particular one. You really can't overuse that word as you go. There's other power words in your downloads. More examples. I'm going to bend you over the couch, roughly pull off your belt, etc. That's build anticipation. You feel my lips on your back moving down to your gorgeous ass. You let out a little moan, a little whimper of wanting. I just love that phrase, a little whimper of wanting. It's got some good alliteration to it. More examples. My fingers claw into your hair. You thrust your hips back against me. You feel my weight on your back. In my experience, women love the feel of a man on top of them. In general, if you let them, they just really feel secure and wanted in that way. So here's, during the course of this class, we've been building some examples. So let's kind of build on what we had before. In the section 2, we talked about, a basic curiosity pivot. I was just thinking. And her response is, about what? And we said, how fucking gorgeous your ass is. Basically, that's a very simple asset-based lust establisher. Her response will be something along the lines of, oh my God, because she's kind of not used to being talked to this way by you. And you come back and say, I could hardly contain myself. Again, that's actually more of like a curiosity thing there. She's going to say, I could hardly contain myself from what? From doing what? Which is what she says. Maybe you'll find out tonight. So we're talking about the future in this case. Will I? Maybe when you get home. So again, we're talking about the future. Maybe when we get home, here's what's going to happen. Yes, you'll feel me walk up behind you. My breath on your neck. My fingers grazing down your side. Her. Wow. I run my hands up to your shoulders and you just feel all your tension flow away. I guide you over to the bed. And she goes, hold on. Okay, I had to close the door. And then, so this is kind of an example of what often happens in these cases where you're giving a fantasy to your woman and she's in a place where she's like, oh my God, somebody might walk in on me doing this and I shouldn't be looking at my text messaging right now because I have a boss who might walk in on me or whatever else. So she'll find a way to make it more private. That's actually a really, really good sign. It means she's totally into what you're doing and wants more. If your woman ever says, and then, that means she is literally sitting there with bated breath asking for you to give her more. It's a really good sign. And then I lay you down on the bed, peel you out of your pants so I can finally see that beautiful ass of yours. Notice how in this case, what we're doing is hooking this to what you really liked about her before. You know, her primary asset in this case, or her physical asset was her ass. So we're focused on that particular thing. We're making that kind of a fetish of yours in some way. Whether or not it's actually a fetish of yours is not that important. It's really just important that she feels like it is and that you're appreciating her in a lustful, powerful way. She goes, oh, honey, wow. You feel my lips on your skin. I kiss my way down your back. My teeth nibble at you. Your hips begin to churn. This is an important bit here. Throughout all of this, what you're going to notice is that you're narrating her reactions. You're basically creating the reaction that you want from her. She's not saying, oh, and then my hips start moving. What you're basically saying is that in this situation, in this fantasy that you're creating, she's so overwhelmed that her body starts moving without any kind of indicator from her, any conscious choice from her at all. In this case, you're in charge of the actual fantasy, and her body is just doing what her body does because she's becoming sexually overwhelmed. It goes back to that kind of romance novel ideal in some way of the woman being ravished, of being overcome by her sexual lust. That's what we're kind of doing. You don't need to stop and actually ask her what her reaction is. You just need to tell her what her reaction is, as long as it's reasonable. I mean, you don't want to go in there and start giving her like fetishes that she couldn't possibly have or anything like that. But you do want to give her reactions that are reasonable about her body kind of starting to move and all those kind of things. She said, I can't believe you're doing this. That's a very common reaction where she'll just be like, oh my God, this is so wonderful. Look what my husband did for me. I ask you if you're ready and you say yes. Again, two ways of doing this. You could say, ask you if you're ready. She won't even just say yes right away over text, but you can still say, yes, your own. You're narrating the situation. You're in control in this particular situation. You hear me unbuckle my belt. We're adding another sense there. We're adding audio, oral to it. You feel the bed shift underneath you, my weight on it. Again, notice how there's really no visual language here. This is all feelings, what she's beginning to feel, her body moving, the sounds that are going on. Very little about visual language. It's not really where women go. There's a reason that Playgirl doesn't sell anywhere nearly as well as Playboy. I like that. And then I spread your legs and again, more anticipation. Oftentimes you want to leave those little ellipses at the end to build up to the next thing. You spread your legs, and if I just said you spread your legs and I push inside you, not nearly as powerful as you spread your legs and then you leave her waiting for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. Push slowly inside of you. And then what I could do if I wanted to get even dirtier is narrate how she feels this incredibly hot sensation building up inside her. Do you like it? I love it. She really probably will. You feel my lips on your ear. I whisper how fucking gorgeous you are. Again, the swearing here is really up to you. It depends on the woman. It depends on your personality. You have to kind of make a decision on that yourself. I find that with a lot of women, it's very powerful. Your move on autopilot. Again, I'm just really reasserting this idea that her body knows what it wants, even if her mind doesn't. Your mind goes blank. Your body just moves. Very powerful phrase. Her, yes. Time just stops, which means you're taking away all her stress. You feel this heat building in you, flowing, rising. I whisper I love you in your ear. It's your wife. Go there, dude. You do love her, I hope. Until finally, yes, you come. And I could narrate this in a lot more detail, but I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. But anyway, until finally, big freaking climax, until finally something really good happens for her. And then in that case, I would often narrate what it's really like for her orgasm, how she feels all this energy building up. If you want an example of that, the bonus I gave you, the waterfall bonus, has a lot of that kind of stuff in it. So that is multisensual texting in a nutshell, or multisensual storytelling. I want you to see your PDF supplemental material for more examples. I'm trying to give you as many as possible, and I'm really always adding more to that document. So you may want to come back and re-download it, because I'm always trying to add more stuff in there. And feel free to steal entire sequences. The best way to get good at this stuff is just to swipe it. So all you really have to do is take what I wrote and use it. And for 99% of women, exactly what I wrote is going to work really fine, but you might want to adapt it or customize it slightly for your particular wife. Okay? So your assignment is to read through supplementary material, get comfortable with the language, and try writing out your own stuff based on what your wife likes, or just copy out what I've given you yourself. Don't try to run before you can walk. Just send her the basics. Send her the stuff that I gave you. Use the getting started stuff if you need to. It's okay. It's all really good. I've worked really hard on it to make this as powerful for you as possible. And your next video is building anticipation and sealing the deal. And that's going to be where I teach you how to go from giving her a great experience in texting when you're not there to giving her an even better experience when you are there, and having her really want to jump on you when you see her, and you can get have all sorts of great sex. I do want to say before we get to that section, your goal is not always going to be to have sex that night. Your goal is often going to be just to have this sexual context and sexual language in your relationship in general. And sometimes you might not want to try to get to the point that you're like, okay, we're going to have sex tonight. You might just want to be, hey, I'm going to get a really good kiss tonight. Or my wife is going to look at me with those eyes again, where she kind of sees me in a powerful way. be cool with that. Take your time. Go with it. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, and make sure you go through the written material. I work really hard on it there to make it work for you. And check out the next video.